Most of L2 students are international students like us. We are Chinese students and we are L2 students. We travel from China to America for studies. For now, let's look at the example about students participate in class.
Students a question in class, so he wants students to participate in class. Okay, so what do you think, guys?
For the research question for our project is, what are the differences, if any, between L2 students and their instructors' perceptions toward student in-class participation? The population of our project are L2 students and the professor from social science and humanity field. L2 students refer to the English as second language learners. We also use the keywords like English, L2, in-class, participation to find the full article from PSU library, which can help us to support our research.
So we decided to conduct our own study on this topic. We interviewed professors in social science field and L2 students in different majors by using two sets of open-ended questions that are similar to each other. In the interviews, we asked our interviewees the following question. First, what do you think participation is? In order to have a better understanding about students' and instructors' perception of in-class participation. We then asked our participants their opinions about the following statement. Participation should be counted as part of students' grade to see what does the participation mean to different groups of people. The last example of our question is, do you think there is a distinct differences between L1 and L2 students' participation rate? If there is any, what is it? To you, what factors could possibly cause this phenomenon? By asking this question, we want to find out what could be the possible factors that cause most L2 students not participating in class as often as L1 students do. After conducting our interviews, we find that even with instructors, there are still two different attitudes on participation. One of the three professors that our group have interviewed indicates that although he cares about students in class participation, he still chooses not to grade it. The other two professors, however, illustrate that they think students' participation is crucial, so they decide to put it into their grading system. So let's start with the majority. The professor who grade participation gave us three reasons of them putting participation into assessment. The first one is participation makes students more engaged to the class. According to David Huston, a professor in sociology field, if you make part of the course participation, it means you are forcing people to think through the material. In this way, students can understand concept better as they're thinking actively in class. Moreover, participation is a useful tool for students to learn from their classmates. Talking from social science perspective, Professor Zach thinks that learning from each other is a very important element in this field. When students share their opinions or thoughts on certain topic, other students, including the instructors, can hear different people's experiences and lives. This process is valuable because people can learn various perceptions of a same topic. Finally, in-class participation enhances students' ability of critical thinking. As Professor Hudson mentioned in the interview, students not only need to memorize definition or take some quizzes to be successful in a class, but also need to take a moment to think about the context, to ask themselves what was provocative for them and what got them thinking. Therefore, participation is a reflection technique for students. On the other hand, Professor Santoro thinks that grading participation is not really necessary for L2 students. He also lists three reasons to explain his words. To begin with, to L2 students, one of the main problems they may have to face while studying abroad is the language barrier. It could be hard for those whose first language is not English to formulate an answer in a short period of time in English. As a result, Professor Santoro indicates that he's not going to force L2 students to participate in class very often. Secondly, since Mr. Santoro is a history teacher, he thinks it is common that L2 students may not be very familiar with the history content. And last but not least, he believes it should be students' choice of whether they participate in class or not. College students are considered as young adults, which means by now they ought to know in what ways they could learn better. As an instructor, according to Professor Santoro, he should let students to make their own decisions.
For students' part, approximately 50% of the students thought that in-class participation is unnecessary, and the other 50% of the students thought that in-class participation is necessary for them. So, why there is a distinct difference between them? We find some reasons from the interview result. For students who thought that in-class participation is unnecessary, they argue that they can do well studying by themselves, and sometimes participation cannot help them understand the materials better. Also, some of them argue that they are willing to listen rather than speak. Listening makes them learning more efficiently because they don't need to focus on thinking about what questions should they ask to get a higher participation grade. They argue that students' academic success is not only based on their participation grade, but based on their ability to understand the materials. For the other 50% students, they stated that participation could help them focus more during class time and let them always engage in the class. And they also said that participation is just like a bridge bonding them with their instructors. When they heard something that they don't understand during the class, they can solve them by asking their instructors. They just need to raise their hands.
We're also wondering why L2 students participate less in class which compare with L1 students. For the first reason we find out is culture difference, and for the second reason we find out is language barrier, and for the third one is personality. And for the first reason, culture difference, in China the students prefer to listen more in the class. Talking is actually a teacher's job. Due to the population in China, we don't have enough time and opportunity for each student to participate in class, so students prefer to listen teacher in the class. And for the second reason, language barrier. As L2 students, English is not the language we are familiar with. We don't have enough confidence on English, so we try not to participate in the class, and in that way we can make less mistakes. If we are using Chinese to talk in the class, I'm sure students will participate more in the class because they know what they are talking about and they have confidence on Chinese. And for the third reason, personality. Some students just feel shy when they answer the question just due to the personality, nothing to relate to the language. Some shy L1 students refuse to answer the question since they are afraid of making mistakes. And some confident L2 students, they participate a lot in the class because they know what they are talking about. These are the three main reasons why L2 students participate less in the class. For the first two reasons, culture difference and language barrier is easy to change. It just needs long-time practice. The personality is difficult to change. It depends on the person. It will take a long time practice to make some change. If L2 students can deal with these three reasons, they will participate more in class because they got confidence and they conquer the barrier.
Finally, now we enter the discussion stage. The results we find are different from other researchers' prior studies. Most of the studies related to L2 students' participation during class are teacher-led and focus on students' language skills only. We interview professors and also L2 students in different majors like finance, criminology, psychology, mathematics, communication, accounting, and computer science. And we make up some questions like, what factors do you think may possibly cause L2 students not participate in class for professors? And what factors do you think may possibly cause you not participate in class for students? And we find out that except language barrier, different cultural and education backgrounds will also make L2 students not participate in class. The interview questions are somehow similar, so there is a striking contrast that professors and students had different attitudes towards in-class participation. Our study has several limitations. First, our population is relatively small, only 3 professors, 2 of them from social science fields, 1 of them from humanity fields. Will there be any differences between them and professors who in science or engineering fields? We don't know yet. We interviewed 9 L2 students. Although they are from different disciplines, but the number of them is still too small. Further interesting findings emerge when we analyze the interview question, what could be done to encourage L2 students to speak more and participate more? What do you think can enhance your in-class participation? This could be a new research question. And perhaps our most surprising finding is that there is one professor who we interviewed did not make participation as part of the grading system. Why he chose not to put participation into his grading system? This could be a new research question too. Finally, it is worth mentioning that all the instructors are hoping students participate more during class time.